I'm glad that when I was a teenager and my father was really sick, that we had a regular old landline. It was 1986, and it wasn't just a landline, it was a regular old landline. None of the new bells and whistles of call waiting, caller ID, and no matter how many times my sisters and I begged my mother for a cordless phone, we were certainly not getting one of those. We did, due to our bickering, get her to eventually agree to a 15-foot cord. We had one telephone table in the kitchen with the one phone, and because of our constant bickering in the kitchen over who'd been on the phone the longest, had somebody hung up the phone on somebody else, somebody's boyfriend was calling and they needed to get off the phone, my mother finally said, take the bickering into the living room. But everything came into the house through that one landline. And we had a regular suburban house. And so on the second floor, my sister shared a bedroom, my mother had her bedroom, and I was down the hall. And so at night, the kitchen could get very dark, and you could actually get a little bit of privacy. And that was when I often called my father. My dad was struggling with a very, very heavy depression at that time. The type of depression and consuming anxiety that just pulls a person down and really just drags a household apart. So he had moved in with his sister. His sister was 13 years older than him, my Aunt Gloria. She was the type of woman that still went and got her hair done in rollers for every family event and wedding and sent everybody a birthday and Christmas card without fail. And she had helped raise my dad. And so he went to live with her to try to get on his feet, try to get some emotional stability. And his boss had given him a leave of absence to be able to take some time, because he was a charming and funny man before the depression had pulled him down. Now, we didn't tell anybody about this because it's the 1980s and people don't really talk about depression. They certainly don't talk about self-destructive behavior. And so none of the neighbors or friends or anybody knew, but Aunt Gloria knew, my mom knew, my sisters and I, and a couple close people. And so at that telephone table on that phone is where I often talked to my dad. And one Sunday in July, I called him up. I waited until my sisters were upstairs listening to music. My mother must have been reading in her room. And I went to the dark kitchen with just the bulb over the stove, and I called my dad. He was supposed to go back to his job the next day. And I called him, I said, Dad, everything's gonna be all right. It'll be good. They want you there. Everything will be fine. He said, yep. Just take it 1 minute at a time. You can get through it. He said, I love you. I said, I love you, Dad. I hung up the phone and went back to my room. The next morning, my mom gets up and goes to work. It's the summer, and I am 16, but I don't have to work at my summer job that day. So when the phone rings that morning, I pick it up. Hello? Hi, who's this? Aimee? It's Aunt Gloria. I need to talk to your mom. Is she there? No, she's at work. Oh, well, can I have the number? I need to talk to your mom. I hang up the phone. I go and get my sisters. We go and sit in the den and we watch The Price is Right and we wait for that phone in the kitchen on the telephone table. That's where everything's gonna come through. That phone call that says, it was just a misunderstanding, something happened, here's the concrete answer. But instead, as my sisters and I are sitting there quietly waiting for that one phone to ring, we see my mother's car come down the street and pull into the driveway. She comes upstairs and I glanced up at her and I remember her looking at the three of us and she says, girls, your dad has died. No! The rest of the day vanishes. I really don't remember anything. But when I remember the next minute, the phone's ringing down the hall. My door's open just ajar, but my room is dark. It's nighttime, and I'm laying in my bed. There's no sound except for the television down the hall, but I hear my mother pick up the phone. Hello? Yes, Jane, Amy's here right now, but she can't come to the phone. Now, in the 1980s, we know what that means. Somebody got grounded, somebody's in trouble, somebody didn't do their homework, somebody has a chore to do. I don't care what Jane thinks at that moment. For the first time in my teenage life, I don't want to answer the phone. I don't care who's on the phone. I can't imagine having that moment now and having to deal with what are people posting and texting and whatever on Facebook. I just want to be alone in my room. And I hear my mother say, "Okay, Jane, I'll give her the message." And I just stay in bed, quiet, alone, by myself.